There's a moment that happens in every tragedy. It's not the scream, it's not the sirens, it's the silence before. And too often, that silence belongs to us. Because your silence, my silence, kills people. Now, I know that's hard to hear, but the truth usually is, we've grown up hearing that silence is golden, that it's polite, respectful, even wise. We've been taught to keep our heads down, not to cause trouble, not to confront what's uncomfortable. We're told that if we don't have anything nice to say, it's better to say nothing at all. And while those lessons were meant to teach us manners, somewhere along the way, they started costing lives. Because silence, in many cases, is not kindness, it's not restraint, it's not even neutrality, it's permission. It's permission for harm to continue, for injustice to stay unchallenged, for pain to deepen. We tend to think of silence as inaction, but it's not. Silence is an action, and often it's the wrong one. We think staying silent protects us. It keeps us safe from conflict, from judgment, from awkwardness. But what if silence doesn't protect anyone? What if it actually endangers the very people we think we're respecting by keeping quiet? Every year, thousands of people lose their lives, not only to direct harm like violence or addiction or suicide, but to the silence that surrounds these issues, the silence that lets someone believe they're alone, the silence that allows destructive behavior to continue unchecked, the silence that lets others walk past suffering and look the other way. Most of the time, people don't stay silent because they don't care. They stay silent because they're afraid. They're unsure. They're not sure what to say or how to say it. They're afraid of making things worse, so they choose to do nothing and tell themselves that nothing is better than the wrong thing. But silence doesn't heal. Silence doesn't shield. Silence doesn't rescue. In fact, silence can be deadly. Let's talk about bullying. It's a word we throw around often, something we associate with schools, with childhood. But bullying is not just a schoolyard problem. It's a societal problem, and it's a silence problem. According to the CDC, students who are bullied are twice as likely to experience symptoms of anxiety and depression. Many of them carry those wounds for life. Some of them don't make it that far. And here's what's truly staggering. More than half the time, over 50%, bullying stops within 10 seconds when someone steps in. 10 seconds. One voice, one moment of courage. That's all it takes to interrupt the cycle. Yet most of the time, no one steps in. Most of the time, people stay quiet. Why? Because we assume someone else will speak. Because we think it's not our place. Because we're afraid of becoming the next target, or because we don't know what to say, so we say nothing. But when we stay silent, we aren't just bystanders. We become part of the problem. Our silence is not invisible. It is felt. It echoes in the mind of the person suffering. It tells them their pain doesn't matter. It tells the perpetrator that their actions are acceptable. It tells the world that we have chosen comfort over courage. So when we think about these moments, when we see someone being mistreated, when we hear a harmful comment, when we notice someone withdrawing into themselves, we need to ask a different question. Not what should I say, but what will happen if I say nothing? And more importantly, what has already happened because I haven't spoken up before? We need to recognize that silence is a choice. And like any choice, it has consequences. Not all of them will be visible, but they will be real. It's not always easy to speak up, but it is always necessary. Because the truth is, silence doesn't protect anyone, it endangers everyone. Now, every boy in that locker room has to live with the question, what if I had said something? It's a question that doesn't go away. It lingers, it echoes. It shows up in the quiet moments, in the rearview mirror, in the silence before sleep, in the memory of a laugh that can't be brought back. And it's not just a question about Tyler. It's a question about all the moments they let pass, about all the small jokes they didn't challenge, about every shrug, every glance away, every time they convinced themselves it wasn't their problem. Tyler didn't die from bullying alone. He died from the silence around it, from the voices that didn't rise up, from the friends who stayed friendly but never truly stood beside him, from the coach who chose discipline over connection, from a school that might have had policies in place, but not enough people with the courage to act when it counted. No one threw a punch, but every silence landed like one. We like to think of ourselves as good people. We don't say the cruel things. We don't start the rumor. We don't throw the first insult. But if we're not stopping it either, if we're not standing in the way of harm, then what are we really doing? When someone is suffering, neutrality is not a virtue. It's a void. It's the space where humanity should be. Speaking up doesn't mean delivering a lecture. It doesn't mean making a scene. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, "That's not okay." Sometimes it's choosing to sit beside someone who's been isolated. Sometimes it's asking, "Are you all right?" and being willing to hear the answer, even if it's uncomfortable. We avoid discomfort like it's a danger. We're scared to say the wrong thing, scared of becoming a target ourselves, scared of stepping outside the group. But that fear we feel for a moment, that's nothing compared to the fear someone else lives with every day. Fear of not belonging, fear of being seen as less than, fear of being invisible until it's too late. And it's not just about Tyler. There are Tylers everywhere, in every school, in every workplace, in every friend group, people who are being slowly erased by jokes that are just teasing, by traditions that leave them out, by the cold shoulder of social exclusion. We don't always notice it right away. Sometimes we don't see it until it's too late. And then we find ourselves wondering how we missed it, how we didn't recognize the weight they were carrying. It takes courage to speak. It takes more courage to speak when no one else is. But that's when it matters most. That's when your voice isn't just a sound, it's a signal. It's a flare in the dark saying, "You're not alone." And once someone knows they're not alone, they start to believe that maybe their life matters, that maybe they can make it through. Those boys in the locker room will never get the chance to go back. They won't get another opportunity to speak up for Tyler. But we do. We get that chance every day. In our classrooms, in our offices, in our families, in our communities. Every time we choose discomfort over regret, we shift the outcome. We tell the world who we are. More importantly, we tell someone else that they matter enough for us to risk the silence. Because silence may feel safe, but it isn't. Not for them, not for us. And the longer we wait, the more we all lose. Let me be clear. Silence is not neutral. It's easy to think that when we stay quiet, we are somehow choosing not to take a side. We convince ourselves that by not speaking, we're avoiding conflict, staying out of issues that don't directly concern us. But the truth is, silence is not a passive act. It's not a place of neutrality. It's a choice that sides with the status quo, a choice that silently permits injustice to continue. When we stay quiet in the face of racism, we are not uninvolved. We are choosing to allow it to persist. Every time we hear that slur, that stereotype, that hurtful comment, and we look the other way, we are giving it permission to exist. We are telling the person who spoke it that it's okay, that it's acceptable, that it's a part of our world. By staying silent, we make ourselves complicit in the very thing we claim to oppose. The same goes for sexism, for discrimination, for bullying. When we hear that offhand sexist joke at work, or we see the way one colleague consistently undermines another, and we do nothing, we are endorsing the behavior. We are saying, this is fine. It's not that big of a deal. But it is. It is a big deal. Every joke that goes unchecked, every slight that is ignored, every opportunity we miss to stand up for what's right, we add to the weight of a culture that devalues others. And it's not just the big, visible injustices we need to pay attention to. It's the subtle ones, the quiet ones. The moments when someone is struggling and we choose to look away because we don't want to make them uncomfortable, or worse, we don't want to make ourselves uncomfortable. When we see a friend, a colleague, a loved one starting to withdraw, beginning to show signs of distress, and we say nothing, because we don't want to intrude. We aren't protecting them. We're abandoning them. This isn't just about moral responsibility, it's about humanity. Inaction is a decision. It is a choice to do nothing, to let someone suffer, to allow injustice to thrive. And if we are honest with ourselves, we know that every time we choose silence, we are not making the world a better place. We are maintaining the very conditions that allow people to feel alone, to feel less than, to feel forgotten. We like to tell ourselves that we're not like that we're not the ones making those jokes or discriminating against others. We pat ourselves on the back for being good people. But being a good person isn't enough. You have to be a brave person. Being silent in the face of harm isn't just a missed opportunity. It's a tacit agreement that what's happening is okay. It's endorsing a culture where oppression and exclusion can thrive in the shadow. Think about it this way. When we walk into a room, our presence should say something. It should say, I'm here for what's right. I'm here to make sure no one gets left behind. I'm here to challenge the status quo, to speak for those who can't, and to be a voice in the moments when silence feels safer. We may not be able to change everything, but if we stay silent, we are guaranteeing nothing will change. And the truth is, silence doesn't protect anyone. It harms everyone. It creates an environment where people feel they can't speak up, where they feel their pain doesn't matter, where they begin to believe that no one will ever defend them. The longer we stay silent, the more we become part of the problem. Every time we choose not to act, we let the hurt grow. We let the injustice fester. We let the suffering continue. Imagine if we all understood this. Imagine if we all realized that silence doesn't just mean that we're avoiding conflict, it means we're allowing it to continue. What if we all found the courage to speak up when we see something wrong? What if we challenged those jokes, those stereotypes, those moments of exclusion? What if we reached out to the people around us who are struggling and said, I see you, I'm here for you? What kind of world would that create? A world where people feel safe. A world where people feel heard. A world where we all take responsibility for the things that matter most. Silence isn't neutral. It's a decision, and it's one we all make every day. The question is, which side will we choose? Will we stand in the shadows, or will we step into the light and make our voices heard? Because every time we choose to speak, we choose to change the world. And every time we stay silent, we choose to let it stay the same. So why do we stay silent? Why, when we see something happening that we know isn't right, do we choose to look the other way? It's not because we don't care. It's not because we're indifferent to the suffering of others. No, it's more complicated than that. We stay silent because we are afraid. We're afraid of being judged. We're afraid of making things worse. We're afraid of getting it wrong. Think about the last time you saw someone being mistreated or heard something that made you uncomfortable. Maybe it was a comment at work. Maybe it was something you overheard in a conversation with friends. Or maybe it was someone who seemed to be struggling, but you didn't know how to approach them. How many times did you stay silent because you didn't know what to say? How many times did you think, it's not my place, or I don't want to make it worse? It's easy to stay silent because in silence, we don't risk anything. We don't risk being uncomfortable, we don't risk confrontation, and we don't risk being wrong. But here's the truth. Silence doesn't keep us safe. It doesn't protect anyone. It only protects our own comfort. And in doing so, we end up allowing harm to continue. The very people we're afraid of confronting, the very situations we shy away from, are the ones that need our voices the most. Ask yourself this: who are you protecting when you stay silent? Because the uncomfortable truth is that when we choose silence, we're not protecting anyone but ourselves. And at what cost? If our silence means that someone else continues to suffer, if our silence means that someone continues to feel isolated or excluded, then we aren't just being neutral, we are being complicit. We convince ourselves that our silence is somehow harmless, that it doesn't make a difference, but it does. Every time we let something slide, every time we ignore the small injustices, we allow the world to remain the way it is. We reinforce the idea that it's okay to ignore suffering, to allow discrimination, to turn a blind eye to the pain of others. The real danger isn't in speaking out. The real danger is in staying silent, letting things go unchecked and convincing ourselves that someone else will do the right thing. But the truth is, if we all wait for someone else to speak up, no one ever will. And then we all end up living in a world where we look back and wonder why we didn't do more, why we didn't say something when we had the chance. Breaking the silence doesn't require some grand, perfect speech. It doesn't require us to have all the answers or to be experts in the situation. It can start with a simple sentence. A sentence that doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be eloquent, doesn't have to be a solution. It just has to be real. Imagine what would happen if, instead of staying silent, we spoke up in those moments. What if, when we heard a joke that crossed the line, we said, "Hey, that joke's not funny"? What if, instead of ignoring someone who's been withdrawn, we asked, "I noticed you've been distant. Are you okay?" What if, instead of walking away from uncomfortable situations, we said, "This doesn't feel right. Can we talk about it?" It's not about being perfect. It's about showing up. It's about saying, "I see you, I hear you, you matter." And in doing so, we disrupt the silence that allows harm to continue. Because the reality is, the moment we speak, the moment we choose to break the silence, we create an opportunity for change. It might not fix everything, but it makes a difference. It starts a conversation, shifts a mindset, challenges the status quo. We don't need to be experts or superheroes. We just need to be human. We need to show up, even when it's uncomfortable. We need to step out of our comfort zones and take responsibility for the moments when we have the power to make a difference. We have to remember that silence is not neutral. And every time we choose to speak, no matter how small or simple it may seem, we are choosing to create a world where people feel seen, where justice is given a chance, and where suffering is not ignored. The question is no longer whether we will speak. The question is, when will we start? Here's what happens when one person speaks up. It can change everything. It can save a life. It can create a ripple that reaches far beyond what we can see in the moment, far beyond what we might expect. It doesn't always require a grand gesture or a dramatic scene. Sometimes it's as simple as asking the right question. In 2012, a teacher in New Jersey noticed something troubling. One of her students, a 14-year-old girl named Olivia, had begun to withdraw. She stopped turning in her homework. She barely spoke in class. Her energy, once bright, now seemed dim. It was the kind of thing that could be written off, brushed aside with a simple, "It's just a phase." But this teacher, this one person, did something different. She didn't ignore it. She didn't let it slide. She asked Olivia one question: "Do you feel safe?" That question, that simple act of showing concern, changed the course of Olivia's life. It turned out Olivia wasn't just withdrawing because of typical teenage mood swings. She was facing something much darker: abuse at home. And that conversation, that one moment where someone took the time to care, led to Olivia being removed from a dangerous situation and placed into a safe environment. Today, Olivia is a social worker. She spends her days helping other kids find their voice, guiding them through the very struggles she once faced. And it all started with one question, one voice, a simple act of noticing and speaking up, a ripple that started with a small action and expanded out into something far greater than anyone could have imagined. This isn't an isolated story. It happens every day, all around us. We don't always see it, but there are countless moments like Olivia's where one small act of speaking up, one single voice, makes all the difference. Think about all the times you've noticed something isn't quite right. Someone who's quieter than usual, a colleague who's withdrawn, a friend who seems off but doesn't quite say why. How many times have we stayed silent, assuming someone else would step in, assuming it wasn't our place to intervene? But what if we asked that one question? What if we took that one step, however small, to make a difference? In those moments when we choose to speak, we create a ripple effect that extends far beyond what we can see. We might never know the full impact of our words or actions, but the reality is those ripples spread. They reach the person in pain, they reach those who need to hear the truth, and they start a chain of events that can change lives. When we speak up, we tell someone, they matter. We show them they are seen, that their struggles aren't invisible. And that can be the difference between feeling alone and feeling supported. Sometimes it's all someone needs to know they're not facing their battle by themselves, that they have an ally, that someone cares. One voice is never just one voice. It carries with it the potential to spark change, to encourage others to speak up, to inspire a movement. Think about the moments in your own life when someone's words made a difference. It might not have been the most profound thing someone said, but it was enough to make you feel heard, enough to make you feel like things could get better, enough to change your course. The beauty of this ripple effect is that it doesn't take much to start it. It doesn't take an expert. It doesn't take a leader. It just takes someone willing to be vulnerable, to step into the discomfort and to speak. One voice can create a wave. One voice can save a life. So ask yourself, when was the last time you spoke up? When was the last time you made the choice to act, to ask the hard questions, to be the voice for someone who may not have the courage to speak for themselves? Because in the end, it's not about the grand gestures or the grand speeches. It's about the small moments. It's about asking the question, offering the support, and taking the chance to speak when the world asks us to stay silent. One voice, one moment, one life. That's all it takes. You said, we often think of bravery as something that happens in the heat of battle, a heroic act of rushing into danger to save the day. We picture warriors on the front lines, firefighters running into burning buildings, or soldiers charging into the unknown, risking everything for a cause greater than themselves. And yes, that kind of bravery exists, but it's not the only kind. True bravery, the kind that can make a profound impact in our everyday lives, often looks much different. Sometimes bravery isn't found on the battlefield. Sometimes it's found in the quiet, everyday moments where we have to make a choice between comfort and doing what's right. Bravery is saying the thing no one else is willing to say. It's easy to stay silent when the conversation around us is comfortable, when no one is challenging the norm, when everything is flowing smoothly. But what happens when we see something wrong? What happens when we hear a joke that crosses the line or see someone being treated unfairly? It takes bravery to speak up in those moments, to challenge the status quo, and to say, this isn't right. It's not about grand gestures or speeches. It's about having the courage to disrupt the flow and stand for what is true, even when it's uncomfortable. Think about the times you've heard your friends, colleagues, or even family members say something that didn't sit well with you. Maybe it was a comment that was disrespectful or hurtful. Maybe it was something small that you knew could have a larger impact. How easy would it have been to just laugh it off, to avoid confrontation, to stay in the comfort of silence? But bravery isn't about avoiding discomfort. It's about leaning into it. Bravery is calling out your friends when they're wrong. It's reminding them of the value of kindness, empathy, and respect, even when it feels awkward. It's not about making them feel small, but about helping them see a different perspective, helping them grow. And yes, it takes courage, but in doing so, you might just help them become a better person. And in the process, you become one too. Bravery is also showing up for someone in pain, even when you don't have the right words to make it better. We all face moments in life where we don't know what to say, where words feel inadequate in the face of someone else's suffering. But sometimes just being there is enough. Sometimes the most powerful act of bravery is sitting with someone in their pain, offering your presence, your ear, your heart. It's not about fixing their problem. It's about showing them that they are not alone. In those moments, bravery isn't in the perfect thing you say. It's in your willingness to be vulnerable, to be present, and to offer comfort without expectation. The truth is, being brave doesn't always look like stepping into the spotlight. Sometimes it's about being willing to step into the shadows with someone else. It's about saying, I'm here for you, even when you're not at your best. It's about being human in the rawest, most authentic way possible. Bravery is choosing to be human. Out loud. Choosing to be human means acknowledging that we're all flawed, that we all have our moments of weakness, that we're all facing battles no one can see. And it means showing up for others in those moments, even when we don't have all the answers. Bravery is accepting that vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. It's opening ourselves up to the possibility of failure, of making mistakes, of not knowing the right thing to say, and doing it anyway. Because in those moments we connect. We build trust. We show people that they matter, that their struggles are real, and that they're not facing them alone. Bravery isn't always loud. It's often quiet. It's in the small moments of speaking out, of showing up, of standing beside someone who needs you. It's in the decisions we make every day to be more than just passive observers, but active participants in creating a better world. And it's in the courage to be authentic, to be vulnerable, and to be human, even when it's easier to hide behind the walls we've built. So, the next time you find yourself in a moment where bravery is required, remember this. It's not always about charging into danger or making a dramatic statement. Sometimes, bravery is as simple as saying the thing that needs to be said, being there for someone when they need it most, and choosing to show up for what's right, even when it's hard. Because in the end, that's the bravery that can change lives. That's the bravery that builds connections. That's the bravery that creates a ripple effect, inspiring others to do the same. And that's the bravery that truly makes a difference. So I ask you now, who in your life is silently suffering? Who among your friends, your colleagues, your family is carrying a weight that you can't see? They might be smiling, they might be laughing, but that doesn't mean they're okay. Sometimes the people who seem the strongest are the ones who are struggling the most. Behind their eyes, behind that mask they wear, is a pain they're too afraid to share. But you can see it, can't you? You've noticed the signs, the small changes, the way they've been pulling away. And yet, how often do we ignore it? How often do we avoid stepping into the discomfort of asking the hard questions, the questions that might make us feel awkward or uncomfortable or vulnerable? What pain is hiding behind someone's smile? What are they afraid to say? You don't have to have all the answers. You don't need to know the perfect thing to say to make it better. What you need to do is show up. We don't need to fix everything, but we need to show up. And too often we stay silent because we don't think our voice will matter. We convince ourselves that someone else will step in, that someone else will notice. But here's the truth. If you see something, if you feel something, it's because you meant to do something. Your voice has power. Your presence matters. One simple question, one simple action can change everything for someone who is silently suffering. What injustice are you witnessing in your workplace, your school, or your community? We see it. It's all around us. Sometimes subtle, sometimes blatant, but always harmful. We see the jokes that cross the line, the unspoken biases that are allowed to fester, the moments where people are left out or dismissed because of their race, gender, sexuality, or background. We see it, but we stay silent. Why? Because we're afraid of what will happen if we speak up. We're afraid of being ostracized, of being seen as troublemakers, of rocking the boat. But here's the thing. Silence doesn't protect us. It doesn't protect anyone. It enables the very things we're too afraid to confront. It gives permission for injustice to continue, for pain to go unnoticed, for suffering to persist. You don't need to have the perfect answer to make a difference. You just need to show up. You don't need to be a hero. You just need to be present. Sometimes just showing up in someone's life, just speaking up when you see something wrong, is enough to disrupt the cycle of suffering that's taking place. One voice, your voice, can interrupt that cycle. One voice can be the lifeline someone has been waiting for, even if they don't know how to ask for it. Your words can be the thing that gives someone the strength to keep going, to seek help, to make a change in their life. That's the power of showing up. That's the power of speaking. But too often, we hide behind the lie that silence is safer. We convince ourselves that staying quiet is easier, that avoiding discomfort is the better choice. But silence isn't neutral. Silence is complicit. It's the seed from which suffering grows. The more we stay quiet, the more we allow the injustices, the pain, the hurt to spread unchecked. And it's not just someone else's problem, it's all of our. Because when we stay silent, we let the cycle continue. We let suffering go unnoticed. We let pain grow. And if we don't interrupt it, it will only get worse. So let's stop believing the lie that silence protects us. It doesn't. Silence kills. It kills our ability to connect. It kills our chance to make a difference. It kills the possibility of change. But here's the good news. It doesn't have to stay that way. You have the power to change it. You have the power to be the voice that breaks the silence, that challenges the status quo, that speaks for those who can't. Even if your voice shakes, even if it's awkward, even if it's uncomfortable. Because your voice matters. Your voice can be the one that saves a life. It can be the one that reaches someone in their darkest hour and pulls them into the light. It can be the one that helps someone feel seen, heard, and valued. It can be the one that sparks a change, a ripple that spreads far beyond what you can see. So speak, even if you're afraid. Speak, even if you don't know what to say. Speak, even if you're unsure of what will happen next. Because in the end, your voice might just save a life. And that's worth stepping out of your comfort zone for. That's worth breaking the silence for. That's worth everything.